Welcome to Murder Mile. Today, I'm standing on Eaton Place in Belgravia, SW1. 3 streets east of the unsolved death of Countess Lubienska. 2 streets south of acid bath murderer John George Haig. 2 streets west of not-so-lucky Lord Lucan. A case so dull and done to death that I will never cover it on this podcast. And 2 streets south of the boy who killed, because a film star told him to. Coming soon to Murder Mile. Eaton Place is a very posh neighbourhood. Being a wide semi-private street, consisting of 2 lines of 5-storey buildings made of Portland stone, with huge Doric columns to the side of each main door. This area is so posh, the average house is worth £40 million, and most residents are knighted. Whether that's a CBE for tax avoidance, an MBE for going to Eton, an OBE for being a jolly good egg, a KCG for covering up a politician's little snafu with a pig and his willy, a ladyship for being pals with a royal, not that one, or a lordship for services to charity, but only when it benefits their bank balance. Sadly, although architecturally pleasant, there's no community. The most you'll see of any resident is as the chauffeur pulls up, the butler fawns, the maid curtsies, and they savour an evening with their 5th spouse, and several lawyers to silence a string of sexual assaults with a swipe of a blank cheque. In 1969, Flat 3 of 69 Eaton Place was the home of Sir William Ackroyd, 3rd Baronet of Lightcliffe. Like many men of prestige, he kept a small staff. A housekeeper, a chambermaid, a live-in manservant called Frank Hocking, and by the summer, a butler called Victor Ford-Lloyd. It was a neat home. He led an elegant life. His staff got on well, and Sir William was regarded as a kind and generous employer. But on the evening of Saturday the 9th of August 1969, a brutal and violent murder inside of this millionaire's home would change all of their lives forever, and not just the victim. My name is Michael, I am your tour guide, and this is Murder Mile. Episode 166, The Bloody Butler, Part 1. No matter who you are or where you come from, it's hard to get through life without relying on the kindness of others. This was particularly true for Victor Ford-Lloyd, butler to Sir William. On Sunday the 10th of August 1969, at roughly 9 a.m, Victor yawned as he staggered down Eaton Place, still feeling a little bit tipsy, as he chuckled to himself at the night he just had. With the boss away and no need to be up early, Victor had hit the town to let off a bit of steam. He'd seen some chums, he'd sunk some beers, he'd seen in the wee small hours at the roulette table, winning 200 quid, which wasn't bad for an Essex lad who barely scraped by in maths. And he slept the last few hours of the night at the 5-star Hilton Hotel in Park Lane. Being knackered, he wanted breakfast, a shower, and to get back to his place of work at the prestigious 69 Eaton Place, which he also had the pleasure of calling his home. Oddly, although stylishly dressed, after a long hot night of fun, Victor looked a little rough, as his black jacket, black trousers and pink shirt had creased. But there was still no denying that he was handsome. Victor was a looker, as being a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pale-skinned 32-year-old who was tall and slender. This pretty boy had no problem pulling in the twinks, but he preferred the older gentleman of wealth who could keep this working-class kid away from poverty and in the lifestyle of which he felt he deserved. Just after 9 a.m, Victor popped his key in the black front door, locking it behind him. In the hallway, he didn't call out,
"Frankie, I'm home,"
as being a communal hallway to two other flats. That kind of hollering was uncouth. Besides, when drunk or upset, his posh accent slipped and the Essex popped out. Climbing the stairs, as he opened the door to the flat's lower floor, his first thought was to pop into the storeroom, a utility room full of mops, linen and tools, as this was where Albert slept. Being a slightly pampered black Pomeranian, Albert was normally a little yappy, but when Victor saw him, he whimpered.
"Frankie!"
Victor called across the living room, dining room and kitchen. As he had left it the night before, these tastefully decorated rooms were as neat as a pin, with nothing out of place. But what was odd was the silence, as there was no sign of Frank, the manservant, his best friend, and his lover. Climbing up to the upper floor, although around him were 2 bathrooms and 2 smaller bedrooms, one each for Frank and Victor, his eyes were drawn to the master bedroom, Sir William's. Left ajar, it was clear that the white wooden door had been forced, as the smashed lock lay a few feet inside. Entering, he knew it didn't look right, as someone had broken in, but they hadn't touched much. As a very elegant room with exquisite furnishings, the bedroom was full of busts, vases, books, and intricate little pieces of objet d'art. But nothing appeared to have been vandalized, rifled, or stolen. On an armchair lay a set of clothes, as if someone had got ready for bed. On the floor lay a small pile of underwear, and to the side lay a broken lamp. The only sign of disarray was the bed. Befitting a man of his status, Sir William's bed was grand and stylish. A French chaise longue with a curved headboard, hand-sewn fabrics, and white soft sheets. Only the pristine white was now dotted with faint spots of red, as underneath lay a motionless lump.
"Hello?
Victor cooed to the lump,
Hello?"
but got no reply. With his right hand, he pulled back the bedsheet, and instantly wished that he hadn't. What he saw was the red of a smashed head. Its skull caved in with such violence that it made this pale, lifeless face look as if, in that last moment of terror, it had tried to spawn a set of red wings to fly itself to safety. Shivering with fear, although his lips quivered and his breathing was staggered, Victor was too confused to shed any tears, and although heaving at the sight, his guts couldn't retch any sick. grabbing the phone and dialing 999. At 9:08 a.m, PC Sidney Gillingham of Scotland Yard received his call.
Hello? I'm at Sir William Ackroyd's residence. It's in a state of turmoil. Do you mean a burglary? I don't know, but there's a body upstairs. A dead body? Yes, I think so. I think it's Sir William's butler.
Victor gave his name and the address. The officer stated,
We'll be right there. Don't touch anything. Yes, sir, I won't.
And having been dispatched from Gerald Road, the police arrived at 9:18 a.m. As he stood there, staring at this freshly slaughtered corpse, Victor knew one thing for certain. With his colleague, his best friend, his lover, and the man he owed his life to, murdered, the second that Frank Hockinger died, everything which was good about his life had been stolen from him in an instant. Victor was nothing without Frank, and he knew it. Victor Norman Ford-Lloyd was born on the 25th of May 1937 in Hampstead, North London, as one of 5 siblings to 3 sisters and a brother. With his father deceased, his early life lacked stability. As with his mother absent, Victor spent much of the first 12 years of his life in foster homes and care. Which is not to say that his mother was negligent or uncaring, as having been diagnosed with chronic schizophrenia 1 year after his birth and 14 years before a drug was found which managed the symptoms, she was committed to both Bedlam Mental Hospital and St Bernard's Psychiatric Unit. As a wartime child, raised in a turbulent time of bombings, trauma and rationing, his education was sporadic, and although literate, his academic level was unsurprisingly regarded as unremarkable. Given his early life, it's amazing that this blonde-haired boy with a beautiful face even knew how to smile. But he did. And as a charming lad who just wanted to be hugged, people liked him and trusted him. But sometimes his emotions got the better of him, and being unduly sensitive about his upbringing, often he was gripped with depression, prone to short bursts of tearful anger, and when he did something wrong, he would lie until he could lie no more, even when the evidence was glaringly obvious. Leaving school age 15, he tried to work hard to be a decent person, but life by himself was hard. His first job in August 1952 was as a junior clerk at a lino manufacturer's in Holborn. It lasted just 2 months, as he was discharged for being untrustworthy. He lasted longer in his next few jobs, but being unable to flee the poverty which haunted him, he turned to crime. In March 1954, at Lambeth Juvenile Court, he was given a 12-month conditional discharge for stealing a television and was sent to live in a boys' hostel in Maida Vale. 1 year later, he was again discharged for 12 months for taking and driving away a motor vehicle without consent. It's no surprise that, as a drifter who lacked purpose, by the age of 16, he had begun to drink heavily and never quit as the booze hid his pain. And although Sir William would describe him as mild, kind, reliable, he had a bad temper when he was drunk. age 16. As his sister had agreed to sponsor him in the hope of turning his life around, he moved to Ballarat in southeastern Australia and stayed with her for a year and a half. It was a new life and a fresh start. But still being haunted by his past, they quarrelled, he moved out, and returned to a life of petty crime. Across the 4 years he lived in Australia, he travelled far and wide, moving from Perth to Victoria and Melbourne to Canberra, stealing whatever he could and being convicted of theft in every state. In 1956, he was convicted 4 times in Perth for theft and served 15 months in prison. In 1957, he was tried twice in Victoria for receiving goods under false pretenses and served 13 months. In 1959 in Canberra, he did 9 months hard labour for buying goods on false credit. And in 1960 in Melbourne, he served 9 months for passing worthless cheques. He was a drunk, a thief, but he wasn't violent. As a British citizen, who, as the saying goes, had dirtied his ticket, at his own request, Victor asked to be deported from Australia back to Britain. And on the 15th of June 1961, the SS Orontes docked in the port of Dover. He was back where he had started. And across his 24 years of life, he had achieved nothing. But being a pretty boy, he had learned that crime was not the only way to live the life that he wanted to live. Since his early years, in the boys' home, surrounded by others who just wanted to be loved, being gay came as naturally as being blonde. And having travelled Australia, and later Spain, New York, Tangiers, and even Paris, his life became easier as a pretty little thing which was perched on an older gentleman's arm, as by snuggling up to a wealthy sugar daddy, he would be loved, protected, and pampered. In 1964, he attempted to move in the right circles by working as a private secretary and a club manager in the poshest parts of London. But the second they discovered his criminal record, he was out. Being homeless from 1964 to 66, he was convicted 4 times at Bow Street Magistrates Court for stealing wallets, passing worthless cheques, and using it to cover his expensive tastes. But his life was in decline. And then, as if by fate, he met and fell in love with Frank. Frank Alfred Hocking was neither elderly nor wealthy. He was not the type of man who Victor would normally go for. But being of similar ages and both working class, together they became kindred spirits. Being 5'2" tall, with thick sideburns, dark thinning hair, and eyes which were arched with a monobrow. Physically, Frank was the mirror opposite of Victor. But both being gay, neat, and highly strung, they fit. Having heard his tragic backstory, in July 1969, Frank invited Victor to come to his place of work at 69 Eaton Place and to meet his employer. Sir William was not the usual kind of aristocrat, as although rich and elderly, as a gay man himself, he had a big heart. He sympathised with Victor, a homeless man trapped in a vicious circle where every time an employer discovered his criminal past, he was out.
I became Sir William's butler.
Given a generous wage of £14 a week, including food and sundry expenses, he paid £4 a week rent to live in a small bedroom inside the opulence of Sir William's flat. Victor had hit the jackpot, as for the first time in his turbulent little life, he had a steady job, an honest wage, a roof over his head, and he was in a loving, if occasionally fractious, relationship. After 32 years of struggles and failures, he finally had stability, safety, a family of sorts, and a chance at a future. And he owed it all to Frank. The role of a butler required Victor to ensure that Sir William had everything that he required. His wallet, his keys, his money clip, his checkbook, and his cigarettes. To make his master's life run as smoothly as a well-oiled machine, Victor had contacts and accounts at many high-profile suppliers and outlets. At John Michael on Savile Row, Sir William's tailored suits were ordered on account. To get him out and about, a chauffeur-driven car was on hand at his beck and call, and for the staff for work purposes. Likewise, he never heard the words, "We're full."
We're full.
As all Victor had to do was to say,
Sir William would like.
and it was done. Whether staying at the Dorchester or Hilton hotels, playing at Crockford's Casino, or fine dining at the Brompton Grill. And if Sir William's bulging wallet was ever a little light, at Boodle's, a very expensive private members club, he could send his butler with a note, and a cash loan was made. On Friday the 1st of August 1969, seeking solitude and silence, Sir William headed off for a 2-week break with his old pal in the Highlands of Scotland, leaving his home in the very capable hands of Frank and Victor. On Saturday the 9th of August 1969, both of their lives would change forever. But there was nothing which forewarned them of the dangers ahead. There were no threats, no thefts, nor break-ins. No vicious letters, no malicious calls, nor strangers skulking in the shadows of the street. Neither Frank, Victor, nor Sir William were disliked or in debt, as by all accounts, it was an ordinary day. Seen as a seemingly motiveless crime, to help identify any possible suspects who may want to harm and ultimately murder Frank Hocking in cold blood, Victor provided the police with their movements. At 2:30 p.m, Frank and Victor sat in a French restaurant called Coq au Vin in Knightsbridge. A stylish yet safe place for two gay men to enjoy each other's company. They sat together but didn't hold hands. They chatted but weren't loud. And Victor, having arrived late, shared a few coffees and dry martinis with Frank, who ate a meal of spinach, potatoes and tomato, as confirmed by his autopsy. The £10 bill was paid by cheque in the name of Mr. F.A. Hocking, although the cost would go to Sir William, being a chequebook to cover the expenses, but also to treat his staff to lunch. At 3 p.m, They returned home to flat 3 at 69 Eaton Place, as verified by their taxi driver. They completed a few chores. Victor made a call to Boodles on behalf of his boss. They fed Albert the Pomeranian. They then popped this pampered pooch into his bed. And having dressed for dinner, at 7:30 p.m, they left. Several witnesses, who both knew Frank and Victor, saw these easily identifiable men of different heights and hair colour wearing the following clothes. Frank was in a brown open-necked shirt and fawn trousers, which were later found on Sir William's bedroom floor. And Victor was in a black jacket and trousers, which he wore when he discovered his boyfriend's body, as well as a crisp white shirt. On account, they hired a car from Claiborne Hire at 7:30 p.m. And the chauffeur, Hermanus Loganberg, wrote in his logbook that he drove them both to the Punch Bowl in Abingdon and Noah's Ark restaurant in Oxford.
As Frank paid for lunch, I paid for dinner.
This was confirmed by check, and the chauffeur drove them back to 69 Eaton Place. There were no issues, no incidents, and nothing had raised their suspicions.
I told Frank I was going out for some coffee and some cigarettes. Frank said something to the effect of, with any luck, he would see me in the morning. And I went out, leaving Frank alone in the flat.
The windows were locked, the doors were secure, and the dog didn't whimper. And yet, it's impossible to accurately pinpoint the exact time when Frank was attacked. As having been bludgeoned with a hammer, he was rendered unconscious, but wouldn't die for several hours. According to Victor's timings,
I left Frank at the flat at about 1 a.m.
and heading out to let off a little bit of steam.
I went to Crockford's to play cards and roulette. I stayed till 4 a.m, winning £200, and not wanting to wake anyone up, I stayed the night at the Hilton Hotel on Park Lane. I left the Hilton at about 9:30 a.m, and I got home by taxi at about 9 a.m.
Each sighting was verified by witnesses, and many of his payments were made by cheque.
Hello? Hello? Police? I'm at Sir William Ackroyd's residence. There is a body upstairs. I think it's Sir William's butler.
But as he stood there, staring at the freshly slaughtered corpse of his best friend, his lover, and the man he owed his life to, Victor knew that everything which was good about his life had been stolen from him in an instant. Victor was nothing without Frank, and he knew it. At 9:45 a.m, Detective Chief Superintendent Ivor Reynolds took charge of the scene, and on first impressions, it looked like an almost motiveless attack on a defenseless man in his bed. With the neighbours, Sir William and Victor out, they had no eyewitnesses. If this was a robbery, why weren't the drawers rifled or anything stolen? If this was a bungled kidnapping, if the culprits had mistaken Frank, who was asleep in the master bedroom, for Sir William, why kill Frank rather than use him as leverage? If this was a robbery, as the bedroom's broken door lock would suggest, how did they gain entry via the locked doors of 69 Eaton Place and Flat 3? And if this was a homophobic assault on a gay man, why did they murder him inside a secure flat, rather than on a dark, quiet street, such as Eaton Place? Even without hearing the sounds of screaming, the evidence pointed towards an argument between Frank and his assailant. As on the floor lay a broken lamp, on the carpet lay a clump of Frank's hair having been ripped out by the root. And then, most bafflingly of all, at some point during the attack, with his prospective murderer still in the room, Frank returned to the bed and he lay down. But who had murdered him, when, and why? At 10:25 a.m, the detective introduced himself, stating,
I'm Detective Superintendent Reynolds. I request your assistance while I make inquiries into Mr. Hocking's death.
at which Victor agreed, being only too happy to help. But his helpfulness would also be his downfall, as the police's prime suspect was a man who Frank knew. Someone who was emotional, unduly sensitive, prone to anger when drunk, and when he did something wrong, he would lie until he could lie no more, even when the evidence was glaringly obvious. Without Frank Hocking, Victor Ford-Lloyd knew that he had nothing, which left the police with an unanswered question. Why did Victor murder Frank? Good. There we go, folks. How long was that? That wasn't terrible, considering I had boats going back and forth. The same boat keeps going back and forth, really annoying. And the coots outside are having a bit of a fight. It's close to shaggy, pumpy season. So you know what they're like. They're like, oh, shaggy, got to get angry. Why don't they just buy them, like, if they love someone, why don't they just buy them like a nice card or something, or maybe some flowers, or just whisper sweet, romantic things to them, or just do what I do with Eva and just buy her like a kebab. Kebab does it. She's happy. Pop on some no holds barred wrestling. Oh, she's all over it. She's all over it. A couple of cans of super strong lager. She'll pass out after a little while. You know, that's the way she lives her life. Am I going to make a cup of tea? I'm going to open some windows and doors. I'll tell you that much, because it's not hot, but it's one of those days where it's a little bit meaty outside. And as you know, I have to record with. What's that? Got some horrible things floating in the canal. If you're walking along the canal at the moment and you're thinking, oh, it's excessively dirty, and you're thinking, oh, why have some people already thrown in lots of crap in the canal? It's not. It's called the churn, and it happens every year around spring. So when wankers go past and they throw things into the canal, or they throw it on the towpath and it goes in the canal, it goes and it sinks to the bottom. But when this time of year, when you start to get the heat coming in, it's warming up the water, and then the water at the bottom it starts creating a lot of methane, and the methane and the carbon dioxide starts rising, and it takes all the crap that's sunk to the bottom to the top. So the canals look absolutely horrible during this week because it's all the crap is rising up. There you go. You've learnt something new today. Brilliant. How exciting was that? I've got a bit burpees. Do you know why? Because I'm having a Diet Coke. I'm having all of my chemicals in one blast. Oh, chemicals. I try and stay off Diet Coke, but because I'm on a diet, I've got to do something. Diet's going well, all good. I was going through my drawer the other day because I tend to keep my T-shirts, because I only wear T-shirts and shorts, really, and had my T-shirts normally hanging above my bed because they're nice, so I don't need to iron them because I don't have an iron, because you can't really power an iron on the boat. Why iron things? Who cares? And the T-shirts I can't wear because I'm too fat. They go into the fat drawer. And then the other day I thought, let's. I was going through my drawers in there and I pulled out a T-shirt, one of my favourite ones, and I put it on. It actually fits. It looked good without having to suck in me gut or use any of those kind of slimming filters on my phone. So I was very happy. So I'm currently wearing a T-shirt that I haven't worn in about a year because it was too fat. Still fat, but long way to go, but all good. What's the secret? I'm keeping off wheat and refined sugar. So I haven't really had no cake, no bread, obviously, no pasta. I don't eat a lot of pasta. All the lovely stuff. No sugar really. I had a little pack of Rolos yesterday, but I'm trying to get crap back into my diet piece by piece, just so my body just doesn't overreact. But yeah, no wheat, no refined sugar, and it's wheat that's the problem. It bulks you up. So got rid of that. Feeling good. Oh, I forgot to say, if you're new to Extra Mile, as always, this is the extra bit. Not essential, you don't have to listen to this. It's just waffle. We do some questions in a bit. There's some extra stuff about the case. Before that, thank you to new patron subscribers. Thank you very much. To Lucy Wilde, Angela Vine, and Linda Vine. We've got a collection of vines. A collection of wild vines. There we go. You see what I did there? That was clever. I didn't even write that down. Genius. Not really genius, it's just putting two words together. What else is going on in the world? The little videos that I'm doing online are good. I'm learning to use my editing software more. It's a real pain in the arse. I hope you appreciate them. They're only like 3 minutes long. They're interesting little videos of things that I've shot around town, little cases. They take me an age to do because you need good Wi-Fi to do it, and I don't have good Wi-Fi, and I don't have electricity kind of powered in. I have to run off batteries and stuff like that, so I have to find Costa coffee shops to sit there, and sometimes their Wi-Fi shit, so I sit there having to do multiple projects at the same time and editing, and it takes me hours. It really does. But I've done some little kind of true crime-ish cases. So I've done one on Keith Moon, the death of Keith Moon. I've done one on Mama Cass, and the ham sandwich myth that everyone keeps perpetuating and where we got that from. Another one about a lady who was just going out to have a sandwich and a giant window that was about half a ton fell on top of her. That's really sad. Just done one the other week about a guy who was pushed onto the railway tracks, the tube tracks. He survived, thankfully, but it's terrifying to think about the kind of people who are next to you and doing things like that. Another one about a lady who was just a cleaner going in to do her job. She disturbed some burglars. They attacked her, they beat her up, they hit her over the head with a fire extinguisher, then they set her on fire. And because they're underage, we will never know anything about the case, and most of them weren't caught as well, which is a real pain, little bastards. And I'm going to do one this weekend about a swimming pool, about what a swimming pool was used for during World War II, and this will put you off swimming in pools forever. Even though knowing that the people have piddled in there, and that you see plasters going by, Veruca plasters, and sometimes, as I remember being a kid, seeing a big old dode in the corner of the swimming pool, someone had done a big dollop, and it's disgusting. Which is why I don't like going to pools. What else is going on? Just to say, if you like crime scene photos, stuff like that, videos, all different stuff, as a reminder, I do Patreon. There's a lot of things that I save for Patreon. You know, I put things online, but the bulk of it, all of the really, really interesting stuff, I save for Patreon. So if you want to be part of that, I think I've got all the episodes up to from like episodes 50 onwards, I think, which is all crime scene photos, all stuff that you won't see anywhere else. So dive on. It's like £2 a month. It's nothing. If you can't, that's not a problem, because I think we all have to tighten our belts a bit at the moment, don't we? And especially, who knows how the next year's going to go. Someone needs to stop giving Putin his steroids. twat. Anyway, let's do some quiz questions. Don't forget, I will probably bowl some of these up in the next bit, but don't worry about that. It's all good. No biggie. Question number 1. Oh, just to say in Patreon as well, I do Walk With Me. So if you like Extra Mile, I do Walk With Me. So after I've edited the show, I let you into all the secrets about what's going on in the show, the things that you're hearing, the little things that no one else who listens to Walk With Me will ever hear about. And there's little things to do with the case that I save for there as well. So if you like Extra Mile, you will love Walk With Me. And it literally is me going on a walk, and you join me on a walk. Right, question time. Question number 1. How many floors high is 69 Eaton Place? Exciting. Oh, these are the big questions, aren't they? The big questions of the world. Question number 2. What was Victor's middle name? Oh, his name is bloody complicated to say. Ugh. Question number 3. What type of dog did they have in the flat? Question number 4. What else was kept in the dog's bedroom? So 3 things I mentioned. What were they? Question number 5. What time did Victor call the police? Question 6. Which police officer did he speak to? That's a difficult question. Question 7. Which case did I say is not coming to Murder Mile? This is at the very start of the show. Question 8. How much money did Victor say he won on the casino? Ooh, burpees. That's not his answer. Question 9. How much money did Victor say he earned per week as a butler? Butler. Question 10. What colour shirt was Victor wearing that night? Right, we'll do the answers very shortly. Let's dive into some extra details. So Sir William Ackroyd, I didn't really say much about him in there. I researched him, but I didn't feel... He kind of muddied the waters a little bit. Also in this bit, this is the Extra Mile bit, I'm not going to say too much because I haven't written the part 2, which is the final part, and that's next week, and I don't want to ruin bits that may be important for that. So we'll go through little bits here, but they're not hugely important. Next week will be more important. So Sir William Miles Ackroyd, he was a company director of Hardy Amis Limited. He was the 3rd Baronet of Lightcliffe. As mentioned, born in 1923, he died 2007. As he comes from a family of baronets of West Riding in Yorkshire. You can tell he's posh because he's educated at Charterhouse, which is one of the very posh. He was a lieutenant in the 5th Royal Dragoon Guards and was awarded the Military Cross in 1944. He succeeded his father as 3rd Baronet Ackroyd of Lightcliffe on the 29th of April 1965. So basically 4 years before this incident happened. He was unmarried, had no children, obviously because he was a gay man. Although quite often in that era, a gay gentleman would marry another lady because it was still illegal at that point, and it kind of... We were in that era where you couldn't be yourself. Frank Hocking, 30 years old. He was valet and manservant. Difference between a manservant and a butler all becomes kind of important next week. As mentioned, he was born in Brixton in 1935, although his parents lived in Kettering, so in Northamptonshire. Only little, 5'2", dark-haired, often wore glasses. People saw him walking around the area with a little small dog. He had a monobrow, so kind of eyebrows that kind of meet in the middle. His hair was slightly thinning, a little bit thicker on the sides. He had spent most of his life in the catering business. He met Sir William in May 1968, and he became initially his valet and cook, but then became his kind of valet and manservant. So valet is the kind of the person who kind of looks after his car and keeps it clean and stuff like that. All 3 of them were gay gentlemen. We're going to dive into this more next time, but there was kind of more of an open relationship. It was less kind of servant-master. It was kind of, there was a sexual relationship allegedly between Frank, who ended up dead, and Sir William. There's some interesting letters that could come with this that will go out in Patreon, so you can have a look at those as well. They're kind of interesting, especially given the fact that it was kind of, there was more to the relationship that kind of meets the eye. But as mentioned, July 1968, this was when Victor and Frank met, and they introduced him to Sir William, and it kind of became like a nice kind of interesting little relationship going on there. I'm not going to dive in too much into that because that's where next week's episode is. Victor, born in 1937, he was 32 years old around that point. As mentioned, he grew up in Essex, in and around Chingford, which is where I lived for a good long while. He didn't have much contact with his parents. Obviously, as mentioned, his father died early and his mum was in a psychiatric institution pretty much for the first 12 years of his life. Going to be careful about what I do, because how much of this comes back later on is kind of quite important. As mentioned, quite traumatic, suffered with kind of depression, anxiety from an early age. Feelings that people always felt that he should have done more with his life, or that he was worth more than he kind of felt that he was. He was nice, he was pleasant, he was reliable, but when he got drunk, he had a really bad temper. This is going to pop up a lot next time. There's a lot of this. I've enjoyed writing this episode because there's a lot to say, but also it's kind of, everything is about perspective, really. As with everything in life, like, you know, I'm sure you could probably get two books side by side, and one would say, like, on Adolf Hitler, and you get one book that goes, oh, he's a nasty piece of shit, oh, look at him, he's evil. And then I'm sure someone could write a book going, no, actually, look at him, you know, there's a lot about him that's really good. You know, when you look at it from his perspective as opposed to other people's perspective, you know, it's the same with everything, you know. What else we got? Which is not to say I like Hitler. No, I don't want everyone saying, oh, Michael said that Hitler's really nice. He said that they would become his best pal. They'd go out together, they'd have drinks. They wouldn't have drinks because he didn't drink that much. They said he was teetotal. He just wasn't much of a drinker. And he was only vegan because he suffered with farty farts quite a lot. I did a blog ages ago on diets and dictators, and that was really interesting. Why am I going into Hitler's dietary needs? This, we don't need to know any of this. I'm just being really careful about what I'm saying with this. Normally, if you're new to Extra Mile, normally I wouldn't be this hesitant, but I still got to write next week's episode. So, education. Victor was educated at the Hutton Residential School, and then at Chingford Mount Secondary School, which I didn't go to, but I lived not too far around the corner with my mum there. Everyone said that he was quite unremarkable at school, but you know, he is educated. Pretty much most of his education, he was raised by London County Council, who kind of looked after him for his education and his care. He was in and out of foster families. Very little that we know about that, but he seems to be decent enough. Work-wise, he did a couple of months as a junior clerk for David Nairn & Co. lino manufacturers in Marylebone. People staring into my boat. Weirdos. In Marylebone? Holborn, that's what I was thinking of. Discharged because he was untrustworthy. He worked for a bit at Vokins as a general lighterman, or a junior clerk for a general lighterman's. They're the kind of companies that used to move the canal boats around. He left of his own accord. He got a job as a junior clerk at Searle Radiators in Camden Town, earning £3, but owing to a court appearance, unfortunately, he lost that job. He was personal secretary in 1964 to Keith Wallace at Berkeley Square, so a very nice posh area. He only lasted about 6 months on that. Part-time manager at the Hay Hill Club, W1, which is a very posh club. So this is the kind of area where he's working his way up. He got another job as a clerk at Somerset House, which is where a lot of the tax stuff was being done and kind of public records, on £11 a week. But he was dismissed because obviously working for an office where they deal with lots of people's records, they discovered that he had a criminal record, which he hadn't mentioned. 1964, he was a control supervisor for Vista Rentals in Victoria, London, but he left of his own accord. Again, only there for about a month. This seems to be a pattern at this moment where he's trying to find jobs, but because he's a criminal, no one will employ him. 1967, he was a clerk at H. Allen Wine Merchants in SW3, so just south of here. Again, he was dismissed because his criminal record was found. He, for about almost 2 years, he was unemployed and homeless, basically living on people's sofas. And that's when he met Frank. I had to remember. At the start, I kept forgetting who was Frank and who was Victor. So it sometimes happens. Sometimes my brain goes a little bit weird. As mentioned previously, age 16, he went to live with his sister. London County Council found that he had a sister who he didn't seem to know about, who lived in Ballarat in South Australia. So he went to live with her. She agreed to sponsor him because he got a bit of a criminal record and she wanted to help him out, but they argued a lot. It went really badly. He turned back to crime. He tried different jobs while he was in Australia. He was a clerk, a salesman, a waiter. He said apparently he was a manager for a pop star. Unnamed who the pop star was, so we don't know whether that's true. Don't forget, he has a tendency to lie. What else was there? As mentioned, all of his crimes are theft. And larceny and kind of gaining things by false representation. This is an era where you had checkbooks, so you could buy something with a check and then sign it off, and then you realise they go, oh no, it's not the real person's check. We made a mistake. So he kind of learned how to do that. One count of stealing a motor vehicle in Chelsea. When he went to Australia, he had 6 months in an institution for stealing clothes, 6 months for larceny and stolen goods, another 4 months for breach of bond, another month for breach of bond. They just keep racking up. It's like they seem to either put him away in different places or in prison, but he doesn't seem to do anything. When he was in Victoria, he was charged for 1 year, 1 month and 14 days for false pretences and placed under the supervision of the Major Young Salvation Army and put on a 2-year supervision bond, which did absolute F all because he went to Canberra and was sentenced to 3 months hard labour for false pretences, and then another 6 months for false pretences hard labour. Then in Melbourne, 3 lots of 3 months consecutively for false pretences for passing worthless cheques. He actually approached the chief immigration officer of Australia and personally asked to be deported. He'd had enough of Australia. He wanted to go home. 1961, he spent many months travelling around Spain and Tangiers, and of course France. Some of these bits will come back. He went to New York in 1963 and stayed there for about 3 or 4 months. He was in Paris. We'll probably do a little bit about Paris next week. 1964, his London crimes. He obtaining credit by fraud. He stole an unattended jacket from a club. This may have been the Hay Hill club that he was working at. He was passing worthless cheques. What he would do, he would meet... at one point, he met 2 men in a hotel. He invited them to dine with him. And what he said was, I'll pay by cheque and you hand me your cut of it in cash and then I'll pay for it. I'll pay for the whole lot. Oh, aren't I generous, but you give me your cash. The cheque bounced. So he got his money's worth out of that and he got a free meal. Charged with obtaining fraud by credit. That was for a hotel bill, so he stays in hotels by obtaining fraud. He bought a watch worth £32 by stealing a Diners Club card. They'd just come out then, so that was kind of a bit of a new thing. What else was there? I think that was pretty much it. Lots of fraud, like in 1966, 13 cases of fraud had to be considered. And then Bow Street, disqualified from driving for 12 months for being intoxicated while driving. I'm not going to do any more on that because Still got to write next week's episode, and I don't want to ruin things. This is the problem: is if I say things, I might accidentally balls it up. So let's do the answers to the questions that we just did, and then there we go. Yes, let's do that. Okie dokie, pig in a pokey. Question number 1: how many floors high is 69 Eaton Place? 5, excluding the basement. It's a big old building. When you go on that street, all these buildings are big and huge, and they look heavy as well. Like big, thick pieces of thick stone, and all the Doric columns are huge. Everything about it is huge. It's these kind of buildings that you go into, and the rooms are like double aspect ceilings. So you go in there and you go, oh my God, look how high the ceiling is. But then these people can afford to kind of heat buildings of that size, which I wonder what will happen in the future. Because obviously these buildings are not environmentally friendly. So they'll maybe have to get rid of their ceilings or drop their ceilings. Who knows? Who cares? Question number 2. These are all rich arseholes, who cares? Question number 2. What was Victor's middle name? It was Norman. Victor Norman Ford-Lloyd. Nightmare to say. Question number 3. What type of dog did they have in the flat? It was a Pomeranian. And those little yappy things. Question number 4. Are people going to send me emails now going, oh, why are you attacking Pomeranians? What have they ever done to you? I always am. People always get upset about the tiniest things. People rarely go, oh, I really enjoy. But I love it when people go, I really enjoyed the show. But people get upset about the tiniest things, and then they feel they have to comment on it. Someone messaged me the other day about something which was in the funny bit in the show, and the bit where where I add in the sarcasm, and almost everyone understands that sarcasm. It's not meant to be taken honestly. But someone messaged me, and they were really upset about what I wrote. I'm not going to say which bit, and I was just like, what the fuck? Why? Just get a sense of humour. Oh, I'm sure someone will send me a nasty email now going, oh, you're saying that people should get a sense of humour. Whoa. Oh, dear life. Question 4. What else was kept in the dog's bedroom? 3 things. Mops, tools, and linen. Lovely. Very pampered pooch. Question number 5. What time did Victor call the police? It was at 9:08 a.m. Question 6. Which police officer did Victor speak to? It was PC Sidney Gillingham. I doubt anyone got that one. That was a really hard one. Question 7. Which case did I say isn't coming to Murder Mile? It is, of course, Lord Lucan. Who bloody cares? Thank you to everyone who answered my little quiz online that I did last week. I posted a picture and I said, I'm at this location filming for Murder Mile. Which is this Belgravia location? It was kind of, I knew that no one would get this, and everyone was like, oh, it's Lord Lucan. It's you. Do you know what? You're not far off. We're about 2 streets away. But it's not Lord Lucan. I find it just really dull. There's nothing exciting about it. It's just like, it's Yawnsville. Who cares? It's not coming to Murder Mile. Don't care about it. Question number 8. How much money did Victor say he won at the casino? 200 quid. 200 smackaroos. Question 9. How much money did Victor say he earned each week as a butler? Butler. £14. £14. Well done. And question number 10. What colour shirt was Victor wearing that night? If you said pink, you were right. But if you said white, you were also right. Find out why next week. Yeah! Trick question. Yeah, get in, have some of that. Oh, do you know what? Because I'm so proud of myself for doing that little tricky question, I'm going to treat myself. I've bought some of those rice cakes that have the little thin slaver of chocolate on top. It's about as near as I can get to a treat at the moment, but that will do me. Right, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. That was all a bit of fun. Next week is part 2 of The Bloody Butler. Butler. It's only a 2-parter. I'm not going to do any more on that, and then we'll probably go back to another 1-parter after that. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening. Have yourself a good week. Stay safe. Be good. Lots of love.